Let's get into flash photography for beginners. Flash can have such a tricky reputation because if done poorly, it can be really intimidating. Or if you overcomplicate it, it can get very complicated and expensive very quickly. And it doesn't need to be that way. So what we are going to be diving into is how I use flash, how it works, how an actual flash works, the gear I recommend. I want to make sure that you don't have to spend thousands of dollars like I did testing out all of these different lighting situations and setups. So we are going to go through everything that I do in order to shoot flash as a wedding photographer. So whether you are here because you want to start shooting more studio work, or you're a wedding photographer and you know the clock is ticking before you have to start implementing flash, or maybe you're just sick of crossing your fingers knowing that there's going to be, hoping there's going to be enough string lights or the videographer will bring a light. None of those are situations that I want you to feel like you're in as a wedding photographer. Artificial light and flash is such a beautiful and honestly simplistic thing. And it makes it so that you can walk into a wedding day or job knowing that you don't have to worry about lighting. You've got your clients no matter what. It cuts back so much on the stress that you're going to have at an event, as well as makes it so that you can deliver a way better and bigger variety of images to your clients. Artificial light can feel kind of complicated, right? There's gear, there's settings, there's different looks that we want to achieve. And so we're going to break down each of that for you so that you also don't have to spend a lot of time or a lot of money navigating what gear is going to work for you, messing up on a job. I know I, for one, spent thousands of dollars at the beginning of my career trying to figure out what gear was going to work the best. So after several years in the destination wedding photography industry, I am going to teach you everything you need to go buy, what that looks like, how it works, all of that good stuff. Before we dive into the logistics of how it works and what we want to do, I'm going to break down for you what actually makes flash look the way that it looks. Maybe you're concerned it's going to look like JCPenney or like Uncle Bob shot it in a field in the middle of the day. We're going to eradicate that for you. You can make artificial light look so beautiful, creamy, natural, and that's what you're going to learn next. So artificial light appearance comes down to three things: intensity, distance, and settings. And we're going to walk through each of those on how to make a bolder, more artificial looking light or a more natural, light and creamy light. Okay, first let's start with flash intensity. The lower your flash is, the literal settings, the less light it's going to be pushing out. This means it's going to be a little bit softer just because it's not pushing out that much light. The higher it is, the more intense it's going to be. It's going to create a more contrasted look. This one is a really easy and obvious one. Next is distance from subject. And this is a really important one when you are playing with wanting a more light and airy look or a more contrasted and moody look. The closer the light is to your subject, the brighter it's going to be, but also the higher contrast it's going to be. It's not going to have as much time or room to spread out, and so it's going to be way more intense. Think about this like if I shine a light, I hold a video light or maybe a flashlight this close to my face, it's going to be really contrasty. I'm going to be the only thing that's lit. Everything else is going to be darker. However, if I take several steps away and shine a flashlight at me, it has time and space to move about. It's a little bit softer and lighter. Next is camera settings, and let's kind of talk through each of them and how they work in reference to your flash photos, because if you are working with a hot shoe, not a video light, which we do not recommend for weddings, your settings are going to greatly impact the way that your image looks overall. First, we have aperture. The lower your aperture is, the more overall light it's going to let into the frame. So think the frame overall. It's all going to be lit differently. It's all going to be brighter. If you have a higher aperture, the entire image is going to be darker, similar to how when you shoot natural light. The biggest one that you need to keep an eye out for is shutter speed. This is going to greatly impact the way things look when you are working with a hot shoe flash, a speed light. Because the flash is firing and your shutter speed is capturing that, the lower your shutter speed is, the more ambient light is going to be let in. Think again, shutter speed, it sounds obvious, but it's freezing your frame, right? So if it's open for longer, there's more ambient light, but the flash is going to look the same. If you have a higher shutter speed, the flash, again, is going to look the same, but there's going to be less ambient light. So if you're working in a setting where you're shooting flash and there's a ton of tungsten lights and you don't want that orange effect in your photos, you're going to want a higher shutter speed to make sure you get as little ambient light as possible. If you're doing something like a shutter drag, or you do want more ambient light, say your flash is on your subject and you want to get the background in it as well, you're going to want a lower shutter speed because it's going to let in more of that ambient light that the flash is not hitting and impacting. Up next is ISO, and it's going to work really similar to aperture in the fact that it works similarly to how it would with natural light. It is going to impact the overall light again. However, because you are raising the ISO, the overall brightness of the image. This can make the flash look brighter. Shutter speed isn't going to impact the flash. It's just going to impact ambient. And then ISO and aperture are going to affect everything as a whole. So you kind of want to think of these things like a balancing scale. They each have to be monitored. You need to be aware of them. You need to use them strategically in order to achieve the look that you're wanting to. So let's break down the 3 different flash options that I personally use. And we kind of broke these down for weddings, for studios, higher budget, lower budget. Don't worry, we've got a little something for each of you. So I personally use 3 different types of flash depending on what I'm shooting: off-camera flash, on-camera flash, and studio constant lights. Off-camera flash can seem incredibly intimidating to photographers because they are convinced, 1, it's going to cost $1 million, 2, they think it's going to be a ton of gear, and they're concerned it's going to be super intrusive on the space, and none of those things are true. Let me tell you about the perks of off-camera flash before I even get into the actual gear with you. Off-camera flash works like this. We set up our lights, and it stays in a similar distance to our subject while we get to move around. So for example, if you're shooting a wedding ceremony and you need to get close to them for close-up shots, you need to back up and get those wides. If you're shooting with on-camera flash, you're having to adjust your settings every time you get closer or further away because the distance from the subject is changing, like we talked about before. If you're shooting off-camera flash, you get to set the off-camera flash wherever you want in order to achieve the look that you want, and then you just get to move around and nothing is going to change. As long as your subject and the flash stay close to each other, the lighting is going to stay the same whether you are so close to them or so far away. This is why I love this so much for things like cake cuttings, first dances, ceremony. So many things are happening so quickly, and this gives me the ability to run around, get all of the shots I need while knowing that my lighting is going to be consistent and I don't have to worry about my settings. Constant lights. I only use constant lights in a studio setting. I firmly believe that you should not be using constant lights at weddings. It is intrusive. It can distract from the vibe and the feeling that they're trying to achieve at their reception or their cocktail hour. If they're having an exclusively candlelit evening and you have a constant light in their face, that completely changes the dynamic of their night, and that is not something I'm about. So we only use studio constant lights when video is involved or we're shooting in a studio. These can be a little bit more of an investment, so I really only recommend this if you're going to be shooting in studios often. Now let's talk about on-camera flash. This is easily the thing that you're probably thinking of when you think of flash, and that is a speed light sitting on top of the hot shoe of your camera, just like this. This setup, personally for me, is best on dance floor moments, something where I have to work really quickly or cannot set up off-camera flash. If you're wanting to get kind of that like vibey film aesthetic, flash aesthetic photo, you're also going to want to shoot with on-camera flash. This is incredibly trendy right now. Any flash photography you're seeing that looks more like a party setting, on-camera flash is going to be your best friend. The downside to on-camera flash, kind of like I talked about when we were talking about off-camera flash, is that as you move away from the subject or closer to the subject, you are going to have to either adjust your flash settings or your camera settings. And this can be really hard to do in a wedding environment where things are changing rapidly and you don't have the time to be looking at the back of your camera and making sure everything is going well. So now that you know how flash works, the different options that you can use, you can play around to see which looks you like the best. Again, you're going to want to think of those 3 things: the settings, the distance from subject, and flash intensity, to kind of navigate how you want to use the flash, how you want it to look. Do you want it to be airier? Do you want it to be more dramatic? And that is how you can start using flash if you're at the beginning of your journey. If you want to learn more about flash so that you no longer have to be learning flash for beginners, but really start your artificial light flash journey, we have a free PDF guide for you below, including a PDF walking through everything that we covered today so you can have something quick to reference. And if you have any questions, leave them below and we will see you next time.